Welcome to the Superabound podcast, where vision-led entrepreneurs learn to build a generous business without sacrificing what matters most. You are listening to episode 341, How to Fit Big Projects into Your Busy Life. Hello and welcome. So this today is going to be possibly a shorter episode. I'll try not to ramble on, but I was sitting down today thinking about the next kind of big burst of writing that I'm going to be doing for completing the rough draft of my next book. And I have written now 4 books. One of those, of course, was Superabound that I co-wrote with Steve. And I have done books in very different ways every single time. But each book happened, except for maybe the first one, during a pretty busy part or time of my life. My second book I wrote when my very first baby was less than 1. I wrote it in fits and starts and chunks of time within that first year. And that was something I wanted to do for myself to prove that, hey, new parents can do incredible things, even with less sleep, even with less time. You know, we don't have to be absorbed and have our full identity only be parents. That was really important for me to prove to myself. And I know it's been inspiring to other people to see that you can do incredible things, even when you have a very busy life and a major shift to your life, like having a baby definitely is. The second book that I wrote, or the third book I wrote rather, happened when my business was really taking off. It was a relationship book called Revitalize Your Relationship, which is the name of my corporation. This was everything I was putting into my programs, and this happened at a point in time when life was very busy. We were in multiple COVID lockdowns. I was coaching probably more than I ever have before. And, 2 young kids at home, really busy. That was kind of that was a bit of a wild one. I remember the editing process of that being quite late at night and reading it out loud to Steve while he was like half asleep in bed. The last book, Steve and I co-wrote together. It was definitely a longer process. It was maybe one of the longest publishing processes that I've ever taken part in part because we were co-writing it together. Also, we were creating with a hybrid publisher. So by the time we actually completed the book and it was ready to be printed, that process took like 6 months. That was kind of out of our hands. We had to wait for the publishing date to get it all set up and all of that. So each of these projects has been a little bit different every single time. But the thing that has remained the same through at least 3 of these books is that I fit in the writing and the creation of the book during a really busy time. And I know that that is often mystifying to people. I was posting about this today that, I want to get a big chunk of this rough draft complete before the end of the year. But up until that point, I'm also parenting 2 kids. They are not in diapers anymore, but they have weeknight activities. There's lots of social events at this time of year. I have my regular clients that I am working with. We're doing lots of year-end reviews. I am teaching tarot and coaching classes and workshops and leading sessions for people. It is an exceptionally busy time. And then earlier this week, I just launched a VIP intensive where someone will clear half of their day to sit with me virtually over 3 hours and create their year ahead. It's a lot of creative output, but the very first thing I will say about trying to fit in a big project in the midst of all of these other busy, important life things is maybe a little counterintuitive. So the very first thing that makes this possible that I would share with anyone who is asking how to replicate it in their life is that I have made self-investing, self-care, my workouts, meditations, spiritual practices, getting outside for a walk, body work, all of those types of things, I have made that non-negotiable in my life. In fact, it is a value of Superabound, of our company, is that self-investment is non-negotiable. I have built in a lot of time and a lot of space in my business so that I'm not coming to this project with a full 9-to-5 work day every single day, packed to the brim, no breaks. I actually have a pretty spacious life within my business because what I do with people requires a lot of my brain. It requires a lot of creativity, a lot of space. I cannot deliver high-end, high-value coaching if I am working with like one person an hour, 5 hours, 7 hours, 8 hours a day. Maybe I could, maybe people do it, but it doesn't feel in integrity for me because I know how my energy flows. I know what the best times of day really are for me to be able to deliver at the high level that my clients have come to expect. So the very first thing with that is, how do we navigate life and a big project like a book, or maybe for you it is a podcast or a program, or you're introducing a new product to your business. Whatever the big project is, it cannot just get added at the beginning and end of the day. I know a lot of people will say, well, I just don't have time, so I'll have to get up at 5 a.m. to work on these things. My approach, to be brutally honest, is to never do that. There are seasons, of course, where sometimes we have to work longer hours, but I know that for me to, and for most of my clients, as we've experimented with this over the years, for most of us, having, sleeping well, feeling nourished in every way that matters, mind, body, spirit, within your relationships, your relationship with yourself, this all contributes to getting more done in less time. It sounds like, oh, it's a productivity hack. Yeah, I guess so. The productivity hack is take amazing care of yourself. And that is really my baseline. You might be thinking, okay, that sounds great, but Erin, I don't have a 4-day work week at this moment. So I will share how I sort of built this life into my world and into my business, and how I built that particular schedule. It was a few years ago when I decided I only wanted to work 4 days a week. That was kind of my optimal timing. But within that, I started to ask myself the question every day. This came from one of my coaching retreats. I went on a retreat where I got to participate. I was a participant on this one. And the question that was offered to me was to really sit down at the beginning of the day and ask, what do I want? What do I need? Seems very basic, but it's a question that most people don't usually ask themselves. When's the last time you sat down at the beginning of your day and said, okay, what do I want today? What do I want for myself, for my life, for my business? And what do I need? Because sometimes our wants and our needs are in conflict. I have found that the more often I ask myself these questions, the less often I find a conflict. But learning to honor that my wants are important, that my needs are important, also helped me stay in constant communication with that bigger vision. So for anyone listening who has read the Superabound book or has listened to the audiobook, it's on Audible and I think Apple Books. But if you've listened to that book, if you've read that book, you know that we place a lot of importance on vision. And we created a course last year called Light Your Next Lantern, which takes you through the framework of the book and lets you apply that to a specific topic or area in your own life so that you can achieve the milestones you care about. But within that course, we also did this deeper visioning workshop. And that is something I highly, highly recommend. You can find it at besuperabound.com/course. That workshop is worth the cost of the course alone. But it really helps to say, what do I want? What do I need? And make sure that the way your day looks, the projects that you're choosing, the work that you're doing, the output is supportive to your wants and your needs as much as you can. So I know that I'm talking maybe a bit about the mindset and the inner landscape a little bit more, but to be honest, that is really where it started for me. I have found that intrinsic motivation is much more powerful to get me to do something, especially if that something is hard. So yes, of course, part of this is that I get very organized. I have my writing time on the calendar. I eliminate things that are not in alignment with my vision. I try not to spend too much time doing things that are not supportive to me and my own self-investment or to the vision itself. That comes from knowing what the vision is. That comes from knowing why does this book matter? Why is this book this next book going to take me closer up the mountain towards my vision? How is this going to help other people realize the life the universe is dreaming for them? So really that first piece is understanding where your motivation is really coming from. The reason I think a lot of people will say they want to take on a big project but not actually follow through and finish it is because often that project is coming from the goal swamp. Someone will say, ooh, I love the idea of writing a book because maybe I'll be on Oprah's favorite books list. They think it's going to elevate their status in the world, or which would be great. I would love to be on that list as well. But it's really hard to make that idea and that wish and that dream help you when you are sitting in front of your computer wondering what to write. That's a great thing you could try and manifest, but it may not be so useful when you have a blank screen in front of you. Most people are not as invested in their big project, or they don't know why they should be. They don't have an emotional attachment to it that is big enough to get them through the challenge of doing it. So the organization, I can teach you all that stuff all day long, but really we have to start with the mindset around, why does the big project matter? How does it fit into what I want and what I need? How is it going to support the bigger vision? And how am I going to take care of myself? This is also very important. I mentioned this first. How am I going to tend my own inner flame, take care of myself as I do this challenging thing? Because there will always be fires. There will always be things vying for our attention. There will always be, my kids will always have an activity they would like me to do. There will always be something coming up in the middle of the day when I had planned to write. It is totally known that is how it works. But if I really connect to my vision, it makes it a lot easier and frankly more urgent to spend time and energy wisely on the thing that's important to me. Comes back to, it's what I want, it's what I need, and I'm going to honor it. For you, this might mean doing some serious soul searching around the big project you have intended to do, maybe for some time, but never really given yourself the space to complete. It also might require a good hard look at how you are spending your time and your energy. So again, if you have read Superabound, if you're familiar with our tools there, we talk a lot about the tending triad and how in order for you to be well, for you to be nourished and to invest in yourself, you have to have those sustaining rituals in place. You have to have a connection to your visionary practice. It's something you're doing every day. You're spending your time, your energy, your resources on things that bring your vision closer to being. But the way you do that is also what you say no to. It's your personal filter. It is saying to yourself, okay, I really just feel like laying on the couch and watching 5 hours of Netflix right now. That is where I'm at emotionally. But is that really what I need? And is it ultimately what I want? I am not saying that every single second of your life has to be work. But if you have a million little projects that are in the way of you getting to the big project, what is the best use of the next 5 hours for you? It's probably not Netflix. That's the answer. Definitely have joyful moments in your life. Definitely take breaks. Make sure you're sleeping and doing all of the amazing things for your health on every level. Yes. But if you tend to avoid, I was a procrastinator. I'm not saying this from on high. I definitely can enjoy a good binge watching session. But the counter to that is I try to do that as rest. I try to do that as enjoyment. I try never to do it if it is just avoidance or distraction. So one tool, this is a really kind of a silly one, but this has worked really well for me, and I know it's worked for a lot of my clients. If it's writing, sometimes I will just say, I'm going to write for 15 minutes. I'm going to get the bones of the story I wanted to share here. I'm just going to get that on paper. And if after 15 minutes, I'm still not feeling like I really want to write, I will stop. More often than not, if I sit down for 15 minutes to write, I will want to keep going. In this particular time of my life, in these pockets, my writing pockets are not big, long 5-hour stretches. I'm finding it right now really best for me to work on a segment of the book in an hour-long time and then get up, go for a walk, do a workout, do a meditation. I'm finding that I'm actually craving a little bit more variety, and my body just doesn't like to sit down for that long. So that's how I'm playing with that for this right now. And then with the big projects and fitting them into a busy life, it's also about understanding how you work best. I love gadgets. I love to get as much data on myself as possible. And I've talked about the Aura Ring before. I've used that for years. But it talks about how my particular profile, I'm a late morning type. And I have actually found that is also intuitively true. So the data that it's giving me resonates with what my experience is. If I try to force myself to write in the late afternoon, chances are I will bail. I will bail on that time slot. I will find something else to do that is also important. Maybe if I can't really get into the writing mode, I will take care of some other project so my morning is clear the next day. That is a strategy I really love to use. I get a lot done. But my best time to write is kind of in the late morning to early afternoon. That is when I'm most creative. That is when I can focus for longer stretches, and it really works well for me. And then it feels like I have done something towards that big project in my day, which fills me with a deep sense of very authentic accomplishment. It is not the external accomplishment of the world giving me a gold star. Nobody cheers for me after I write, but I do a little cheer for myself, and that is something I highly recommend you do as well with these big projects, is celebrate the work that you've done. Celebrate your own progress. Getting started is not always easy, especially when you have no sense of where the finish line might actually be. Your big projects are more like a marathon. So celebrate every mile. Work on those lanterns, break them down into smaller chunks in the Super Abound book and in the Light Your Lantern course. We have a process called the 5R method that teaches you how to make progress on a regular basis. So I hope that that's helped you and maybe inspired you to not forget about those big projects, to not think that, oh, I can't do it till the new year, till I'm less busy, till this, till then. Start now. Let your big projects and be the reflection of your vision in the world. Don't leave them by the wayside. And of course, if you need support, that is what I'm here for. Read the book. Get the Light Your Next Lantern course at besuperabound.com/course. And if you are a business owner and you want to take some of these principles and really start to use them in your business, in your life, you want more support and creative thinking partnership, you can always reach out to me and explore our VIP coaching packages. Reach out anytime, hello@besuperabound.com, and I will talk to you again soon. Take care.